Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It's Friday, coming up on 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and welcome to my YouTube channel and to my YouTube weather live stream for this morning as we are watching to the snow that's going to be coming up from the south, and we've got winter weather advisories up. We have winter storm watches up for some areas, and we're going to go through all this and let you know what's going on. First off, I'm going to start off with my forecast, which I kind of massaged and moved a few things around with respect to my own general area. So let me go through it with you. And this is what I'm thinking. This covers pretty much, my neck of the woods. And there are two issues here for me as far as this forecast is concerned. One is how much mixing occurs. Because now with this westward shift, as you keep shifting westward, it's all fine and dandy, but you do get to a breaking point where the westward shift starts to bring in warmer air. And that might be the case for eastern Long Island and for coastal New Jersey. But the other part of this equation that's an unknown is that sometimes, even with mixing in cases like this, you get a change back to snow and you wind up making it up on the backside. And I've seen that happen here many times. So makes that part of the forecast problematic. Also, how far west does the mixing get? Does it only touch the immediate coast, or does it possibly push back toward, say, western Nassau County or New York City, for example? Well, that's a big question. So I think this is kind of a fair presentation here in terms of what I think snow amounts will be. And I may still be a bit conservative. We'll see. The other issue is the western edge, because as everything has shifted westward, so has the western edge of the snow. And I could be off by this. I could be too far west with the coating to an inch of the back edge, or I could be not west enough. But I basically kept it east of Scranton and west of Allentown and Lancaster in terms of that coating to an inch, and that extends down into Maryland. And you can see I have got that band of 2 to 3 through the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, and then 3 to 5 as you head down into central and southern Delaware and through much of southern New Jersey. The Winter Storm Watch is for central and south Jersey, generally along and south of Route 195, which is runs pretty much on a line from, say, Long Branch here. If you just draw a straight line to just near or just north of Trenton, so it basically cuts the state in half from north to south. So the southern half of the state under a winter storm watch, and that's where I have that 3 to 5 inch scenario painted. Going to be interesting to see how everything comes out with all this, given the fact that in some areas the temperatures are a bit on the borderline side, but on the whole, I'm thinking this should work out. All right, so let's review the watches and warnings just to give you an idea. You don't see maps like this too often, so I thought I would definitely show you this. But look at the extent of how far south we have winter storm warnings up, from western North Carolina, northwest Georgia, through central and parts of southern Alabama, central and southern Mississippi. And when you pull up the individual forecasts for these zones, they've got the winter storm warning. Their criteria for winter storm warning is far less than it is up in the Northeast. Obviously, I mean, here they put up a winter storm warning for 1 inch or 2 inches. And by the way, winter storm warnings are also up for South Texas. We've got winter weather advisories all over the place in between. I saw some live video last night of heavy wet snow falling in San Antonio, where it basically snows about once every 10 years. So just this whole thing is really rather fascinating. Now, just to let you know, with what's going on, when we look at the satellite loop, still you got this strong subtropical jet that's moving all this moisture, and it's just headed up to the northeast. And look how the frontal boundary, by the way, has shifted. Not that it's so much shifted north, but the fact that it never got as far south and east as the models have suggested, which of course now means that the precipitation did shift westward, and that has been the general trend for the last 6 weeks. And when we look at the loop itself, you can see the southern part of the jet, the strong subtropical jet, shooting that moisture northward, and then you got these clouds that are coming into the western Great Lakes. That's that upper trough. That's the upper trough that's driving down, and it's just going to lift just enough to pull this up the coast and inland north and west of the coast by 100 or so miles, and that should be it. And this snow will extend up into northern New England when it's all said and done. We are going to take a look now. We've got the new NAM coming out, so we're going to live stream it. We'll live stream the new NAM. I guess that's how I would say that. Okay, so we're going to look at this now. One of the things that happened last night was that the run that came out at 11:30 p.m. was now, and please bear in mind, don't read into what I'm about to say, because now we're at the point now where these changes are going to be small, subtle, but important to the people that live in those handful of miles where things start to change, and we are seeing the model overnight was colder, just a little bit colder, and a shade to the right on the 11:30 p.m. run from last night, and then the 9 p.m. run from last night, and then the 3 a.m. mid-cycle run of the NAM was a shade warmer, and brought mixing into the equation for those areas that I mentioned for the coast. So here we are. This is now at 4 a.m. You can see the leading edge of snow as going to be depicted by the radar. This is what the NAM presentation here. It's basically showing you what it thinks the radar is going to look like. Excuse me. And we've got snow at that point from central New Jersey to south of Trenton, back to north of Washington, D.C., northwest of Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and extending all the way down into the Florida Panhandle. This, again, is at 4 a.m. And as we now move to 7 a.m., the snow is running over Long Island to about New York City, just south and west of there. Model's been pretty consistent with that over the last 3 or 4 runs in terms of the timing. And from here, we get that gradual expansion northward and northwest. So it might not really reach into central and northern Connecticut until maybe about 10 or 11 a.m. And at least through noon, according to the NAM, it is snowing everywhere. So if we want to kind of rocket science this to some degree, we can say that we'll look at the total snowfall at least through through 10 a.m. anyway. You can see that there's just barely a coating, so we're missing about 3 hours. But let me just see if the total cumulative precip is out, and this also is only out to 10 o'clock in the morning. So you can see the measurable is just barely getting in here. Let me go back to that. The snow map. I'm going to go to the positive change snow map because this at least will take into account some melting. And you can see, at least from the standpoint of the NAM, where the amounts are through 10 o'clock on Saturday, with the heavier amounts already on the ground in parts of South Jersey, indicating some 2 and 3 inch amounts there, across into Delaware, down into Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and then south and west into the western part of Virginia, western North Carolina. You get into this purple shading here. Might be elevation driven there on the order of 6 inches plus into the probably the hills and mountains of northern Georgia. So that's a fairly impressive snowfall. Certainly that far south at this time of year, it is pretty impressive. All right, so let's go back to the surface and see how far we have. Do we have it yet beyond 27 hours? Let's hope so. Yes, we do. So now we are at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now there's your low, your wave that is out east of Delmarva and south of Nantucket. But the isobars are stretched back, so there may be a second low there. We don't know if that's the main low that's going to be the driver of all of this. But at this point, which is now at 3 p.m. on Saturday, it's still snowing everywhere according to the NAM. I want to just get close up. Let me get really close. Let's get into the tight northeast view. Because I want to see if we can try to pick up some clues here as far as whether, is there going to be a mixing issue, at least with respect to the NAM. Now, this was the run from last night, and actually this run looks like it was a little bit warmer. I can almost see there's a little green there on the South Fork on Long Island and touching the New Jersey shore. When we go to the new run, it looks like it might be a shade colder, just a shade. But this could be one of those situations where a degree might make a huge difference for 20 to 30 miles. So we want to pay attention to this. And notice here now by 5 p.m. we do distinctly have a changeover on the east end of Long Island from Riverhead east, but west of there it looks to be all snow. Also might be a little bit of mixing here going on right along the immediate Jersey shore. That's another issue. A lot of it's going to be wind direction dependent. This is very, very tough. You're really threading a fine needle. But just inland of there, it's going to be all snow. And we have, okay, that's as far as we have at the moment. So we're out 34 hours. And let's put up the snowfall map. And do we have beyond this? No, we still don't have beyond the 15-hour mark. So why don't we at this point go take a look at the upper air and see what's happening with that. Let me change regions here and go back to the wider eastern so we can see the upper air. And all along, of course, we've been saying how this upper trough in the north was really going to be the driver here into whether it lifted this thing up along the coast or if it was going to squash and suppress it. And it again has evolved into that it is basically absorbing it and just lifting it up to the northeast. You can see you could actually watch it. Let me run that loop again because you could see it happen. The north and south, pretty much phase together here, which was something that the models were not really doing just a few days ago. But you can see that southern energy just kind of gets absorbed as that northern trough just comes down and picks it up. And if we had it to go further along, it would probably basically move the trough straight west to east, although there's probably some hint that of a little bit of lift, or at least just enough lift. Now, one of the problems is if it lifts too much, that's when you get this thing to go back westward and you further west, and that's where you wind up with issues regarding rain and snow. I'm going to go back to the surface map just in case a few new ones have come out. I don't believe that is the case, that we're still stuck at the 34 hours. So this is late this afternoon. So except for right along the immediate coastal areas at this point, it's pretty much snowing from Maine all the way down into eastern Virginia. We can look at the thermodynamics when we take a look at the 2-meter temperatures, because that obviously is going to be important. And, this is one of the arguments that I've been having with regards to folks, trying to make arguments with warm ground and all the rest of it. I've gotten really, to be frank, I've been gotten kind of bored with it all, with that part of it. Apparently people seem to think that they can forecast just as well as anyone else. And, and my response to that is go right ahead, have at it. But you'll notice that you've got the temperatures here all on the NAM anyway at tomorrow afternoon. The only places that are actually shown to be above freezing is right along the immediate coast of New Jersey and just east of New York City. And by, above freezing, it may only be barely above freezing at that point. We can watch the sequence here of the temperatures, because overnight in many areas we'll probably be in the 20s. Oh, and by the way, it's already overcast here, which I thought was very interesting. I thought at least we'd see some sun for the first part of the day, but shows you how this thing is really trying to buck back north and west. So it's possible that the snow could get in here a little bit faster. There are your temperatures tomorrow. This is again at 5 in the afternoon. All of Connecticut pretty much in the 20s. All of the Hudson Valley, much of New Jersey except along the immediate coast, in the 20s, and those 20s actually extend down into northern Maryland. So, this is why places like Baltimore and Washington may wind up with, a couple of inches of snow out of this with these temperatures that are coming down. Intensity is the real driver when it's all said and done. All right, so I'm going to... I guess I should have started this a little bit later because you have to kind of wait for all these maps to come in. It's not the most exciting thing to sit around and wait for, but this is what weather people do. I hate to tell you, but we just kind of sit there on the computer hitting the refresh button. Okay, so here we are now. And by the way, I just noticed the fact, and this is one of the problems with forecasting for the immediate coast tomorrow. Yeah, it could mix for a couple of hours, but by 0Z, it's back to all snow everywhere on Long Island and even in coastal New Jersey. And then we've got, now we're out to 10 o'clock Saturday evening. So at this point, I think the western edge is probably beginning to wind down. Hopefully we'll have the total snowfall map out far enough now. And actually we do. We have it out to 10 o'clock. So now this is the 10-to-1 ratio for snow. And it looks like, it's probably a little bit less in areas north and west, and a little slightly more for coastal areas because of that change back to snow. And you can see that the extent of this running from southern and southeastern New England down through central and South Jersey and into Maryland, Delaware, and into Virginia. Now, again, this is the 10-to-1, okay? We've got to really, if you want to compensate for, melting and all the rest of it, this might be a fairer look, and we will get a good test out of this. But, through 10 o'clock, general 3 to 4 inch amounts. This is why I didn't really go too crazy, okay? Because of the fact that, these borderline temperatures, and I do acknowledge that is the case, and I am trying to figure out, whether the models have the right idea in terms of total precip, because that really is going to be the driver here. If we were going to get, an inch to an inch and a quarter of precip, I'd have no problem going for 7 or 8 inches or even more. But that, I don't think we're going to be able to push that far up in amount. So you can see on the NAM total precip here, it's at least through 10 o'clock, and there'll be a little bit additional here for the next couple of hours. But most of the amounts, the half inch, is just to the east of New York City, over central and eastern Long Island. So, the half to 3/4 of an inch is the area in dark blue. So there's a little bit less than a half inch north and west. So I think you can't have it both ways. Either if it's colder, it's going to be a shade drier. If it's warmer, it's going to be a shade wetter. So there's that, happy medium somewhere in between that winds up getting the most snow. So I think I'm pretty much from what I've seen so far with the NAM, I'm pretty much on course with my forecast. I'm not going to really change anything going forward. This makes complete sense to me at this moment. Now I want to go ahead and jump to the European model from last night. So we can take a look at the next event. And I'm just going to tell you, right off the bat, I have not really spent a lot of time looking at it because I usually, focus my attention on the one that's right in front of me more than the one behind it. But one thing you can see from this map, which is showing you actual the temperatures at 5,000 feet, we are seeing some very cold air that comes down for later Tuesday night, Wednesday into Thursday behind what will be a developing storm somewhere in the northeast. And also the models are kind of showing a little bit of moderation as we go into the very beginning of Christmas week. Now, whether that lasts or not, I don't know, or whether that's real or not, I don't know. But you know what, we'll deal with that down the road. But let me put the jet stream pattern on here, and we can see the trough, the next trough. This is the one that's going through now, and it immediately, as part of that, lifts up towards southern Greenland. Another arm comes around on the west side and dives southward, and that is going to be the big question. How far south does this shortwave dive? Because the further south it goes, the further south the low development will be, and that's going to be really critical here in terms of where some additional snows could fall. This might wind up being a New England event more than anything else, or it could wind up being further south. The subtleties are pretty important. This is we'll get tighter. Let me get to that tight range. So it really is going to be a matter of this thing digging. But you can see by Wednesday night, there's a wrapped up storm up in excuse me, in eastern New Brunswick. But there's our surface low in southern Indiana on Tuesday, which then is suddenly southeast of Long Island. That's Monday night. This is Tuesday night now, low southeast of Long Island. Now, in that position, where you would wind up with some heavy snows would probably be across northern Pennsylvania and then up the Hudson Valley, northern Connecticut into Massachusetts. Areas to the south would get very little, and it would just basically be a front with turning colder and dry, and a burn for snow lovers from, say, New York City southward. Now, it makes a huge difference if you take a surface low that goes, Indiana. Actually, the in-between run took it up into north central Pennsylvania, and then it sort of just redevelops or center jumps along east of New Jersey, south of Long Island. The prior run yesterday actually tried to start a low out down in southern Virginia, which would be very bullish for areas from central New Jersey, even South Jersey, and southeastern Pennsylvania, north and east. So track is going to be everything, and how far south this thing digs is going to make all the difference in the world. So that pretty much takes care of that. Let's go look at our friends in Europe who have been dealing with Storm Caroline, and this is the next one. We haven't been using the European here, so let's take a look at what the European does with this. And there is that wrapped up storm that is Storm Caroline sitting off the coastline of Norway, Sweden. We've got the British Isles there to the south and west, and those isobars are just so packed tightly with those very strong winds. And we have another system that's coming in over the weekend, so there may be some snow ahead of that. And then look at this, just a deep low that is approaching France. You've got another deep low. Looks like the system fractured. This is all new to me on how this plays out, going into Germany. And then we have by day 4, which is Tuesday, one low center that is sitting there just north of Germany. Another storm, and this one, a real powerhouse, approaches on day 6, which is next Thursday, approaching the British Isles and then going into northern Europe. So very active pattern indeed. We'll have to switch to the GFS, though, to get an idea of what this looks like from the standpoint of winter weather and snow. So we'll use the, I'm going to use the total snowfall map, even though it's probably not the best one to use. It's all 10-to-1 ratios. But look at this. That's impressive. That's quite a bit of snow for England. Let's, of course, now of course we're having trouble loading up maps, but we'll get there to the beginning. I want to start at the beginning here. Boy, you folks in the UK you snow lovers in the UK may do exceptionally well with in the next 10 days if this model's correct. But there you have it, at least through the weekend. Some significant snows in southwestern England and Wales. Bit of a snow hole there up in Scotland, which eventually fills in there. But as we get to the end of the period, that is quite a bit of snow, and it looks like also quite a bit of snow for the northern half of Ireland, at least, although it is showing snow at least some snow to be falling over the entire island. So some wintry times ahead here for you folks over the next 10 days or so. And look how far south, even down through a good chunk of Spain and northern Portugal, getting into it, Italy, into southern Italy, almost all of France except the extreme western part, and a lot of snow in parts of central and southern Germany, and through, of course, the Swiss Alps and into easternmost France and southwestern Germany as well. So and the Netherlands and Belgium, the whole area just getting clobbered. So we'll talk some more about Europe a little bit in maybe on one of the later live streams when we get rid of this storm system here in the east. So let me just give a big hello to everybody. These morning live streams are throwing me off just a little bit, but I'm trying to go with the flow. Let's see. So, Connie Shaw, you're new. Good to see you here. Thank you for coming. Cynthia Guignatis, one of our regulars. Iron Mind 10, good morning to both of you. Karen Steed, I think you're new. So good morning and welcome to you. Gary L., David Fuller, Pugmaster. Snow in Houston. Yes, exactly. Snow in Houston and San Antonio. Unbelievable, right? It does happen. It has happened before. Okay, nothing that we are seeing is for the first time. It has happened before. Wayne S., are temps going to drop or stay at the 32 to 34 degree? We're going to hover there, Wayne. A lot's going to depend on the intensity of the snowfall. If it snows hard enough, we'll probably see temperatures drop down to 31 or even 30. I mean, that's going to be a function of how hard the snow comes down. That part of the equation for Long Island is somewhat borderline. So intensity of snowfall is really going to be the driver here in terms of how much we get. If it snows hard enough, we'll accumulate, a fair amount. If the intensity is not there for a while, we'll probably, have some issues in some places. And I'm fine, thank you. All the better for your asking, David Fuller. Thank you for inquiring about how I'm feeling. I'm feeling good. I'm going to be heading to work soon. I'm just trying to see. I missed the beginning. Most of the snow will fall daytime into tomorrow evening, David. That's probably pretty much the time frame. Starts a little bit later as you go north and west, and a little bit sooner than daybreak as you go south into New Jersey, where it probably will get into South Jersey during the early morning hours. Okie AG's got a stubborn wood stove. Oh yeah, you have to kind of put wood in it. Yeah, I know. It's sort of a requirement. It's horribly inconvenient that that's the case. My fishing buddy and good friend Phil Buzz is on. I doubt that he lasted this long through the 28 minutes, but if you're still there, Phil, good for you. And thank you. I said Lancaster the right way. I did? Okay. Because it's not, I believe it's Lancaster and not Lancaster. Okay. I think I got it right. Why is the snow going to the south instead of the north? Because, Trish and Lou, when you've got a deep trough and a lot of amplitude, things are going to track much further south than they otherwise would. So, blocks are not necessarily good things for you, nor are these deep vortexes, because they want to take these systems further south. And that And that's for now. Nothing stays that way forever. Patterns do evolve and do change. And I think, you're going to see that happen here. Daniello is here. Good for you. Dominic Tritola, Suffolk, Long Island. I hope we get what is predicted or more. Oh, yeah. Well, I got us in the 3 to 5 zone, except as you go east, and then it's going to be 2 to 3. But bear in mind, I can't pick those spots where the edges are with these snow amounts. I'm not that good. No one is, to be exact. So, there is margin of error here on both sides, both on the east side and on the west side. I might be too far. I could be too far east with the back edge of the snow. I could be also too far west. I'm thinking maybe, if anything, I might be a shade too far west, but not by too much. And for the eastern part, perhaps I'm feeling comfortable with what I'm going for. All right, folks, let's call it. Let's stop it here at this point, and we will should be able to do something tonight after 6 o'clock. I got a bit of a tighter schedule tonight, but I will try and do a live stream at 6 o'clock Eastern time, and if I miss that for whatever reason, I'll try to get it on a later in the evening. Just check the YouTube channel for the posting time, and we will go from there. So everybody have a terrific day. And any of you that are watching from the UK, I would really appreciate any kind of weather observations just to get an idea of what is going on there. I mean, I have looked and looked around, but I'd like to hear your personal experiences. So if you could share them on the chat board, that would be really great. All right, folks, we'll see you a bit later, 6 o'clock Eastern time.